Have you ever felt like the deeper you think, the more alone you become? Like the more you understand about the world, the less people want to hear what you have to say? If you've ever felt this way, you're not imagining things. There's a reason for it, and it's not just in your head. Throughout history, society has often pushed away deep thinkers, not because they're wrong, but because they see things others aren't ready to face. From Socrates to Nietzsche, from Galileo to Tesla, brilliant minds have been mocked, silenced, or ignored. Why? Because their ideas make people uncomfortable. They shine a light on truths that challenge the status quo, and that's not always welcome. Let's dive into this. Why does society resist those who think differently? The answer lies in human psychology. Think about it. When you meet someone who's physically strong, you might admire their strength, but it doesn't make you feel less than. If someone's wealthy, you might envy them, but it doesn't usually feel like a personal attack. But when you encounter someone who's intellectually sharper, someone who thinks on a level that makes you question your own understanding, something shifts. Psychologists call this the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just bring new ideas, they unintentionally reflect the limitations of those around them. And people don't take kindly to that. Just being around someone who thinks deeply can make others feel inadequate, even if that person isn't trying to show off. Let's break it down. Physical strength or wealth. Those are external qualities. We can admire them without feeling like our core identity is under attack. But intelligence? That's different. It's tied to who we are, our thoughts, our beliefs, how we see the world. When someone comes along who questions what we take for granted or sees things we don't, it can feel like they're challenging our very sense of self. It's not that deep thinkers are trying to make others feel small. It's just that their presence forces people to confront their own blind spots. And most folks would rather avoid that discomfort. This is why, throughout history, deep thinkers have often been pushed to the edges of society. Their insights don't just challenge ideas, they challenge egos. And humans, by nature, will go to great lengths to protect their egos from feeling threatened. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever tried sharing a complex idea in a casual conversation only to be met with blank stares or an awkward subject change? Or noticed how people steer discussions back to small talk when things get too deep? That's not random. It's a defense mechanism. When faced with ideas that push beyond surface-level chatter, most people's brains kick into self-preservation mode. Instead of getting curious, they shut down or deflect. Here's where it gets interesting. Studies show that in social settings, people often value confidence over actual intelligence. Charismatic folks who project certainty, even if their ideas are simplistic, tend to draw a crowd. Meanwhile, deep thinkers who speak with nuance or question popular beliefs often struggle to find an audience. Look at history. Populist leaders, motivational speakers, or even viral influencers often gain traction by telling people what they want to hear, not by challenging them to think harder. This is the paradox of intelligence. The more you seek truth, the more you risk disconnection from the majority. So why does intelligence, more than any other kind of superiority, stir up so much discomfort? It comes down to how our brains process different forms of superiority. Physical strength might make someone seem like a protector or leader. Wealth might inspire ambition or admiration. Those qualities don't typically threaten our core identity. But intelligence? It cuts deeper. It's tied to how we define ourselves, our thoughts, our understanding of the world. When someone thinks on a level that exposes our gaps in knowledge, it can feel like a personal attack, even if they're not trying to make it one. This resistance to deep thinking isn't just a social quirk. It's rooted in how our brains evolved. For most of human history, survival didn't depend on being the smartest person in the group. It depended on being accepted by the group. Our ancestors lived in tribes where fitting in meant safety. Being cast out could mean death. So our brains are wired to prioritize social harmony over intellectual pursuit. When a deep thinker enters the picture, they disrupt that harmony. Their ideas challenge norms, question beliefs, and shake up group dynamics. To the brain, that can feel like a threat, triggering the same fear response you'd get from a physical danger. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that when people feel intellectually outmatched, their amygdala, the brain's fear and threat detection center, lights up. In other words, being around someone who thinks deeply doesn't just make people uncomfortable. It can trigger a primal survival response. That's why deep thinkers often feel like outsiders. It's not that they lack social skills, it's that their intelligence makes them stand out in a world that values fitting in. Let's take it a step further. A 2021 study from Stanford found something fascinating. People's reactions to deep thinkers depend on the setting. In one-on-one conversations, folks are less likely to feel threatened by someone's intelligence. But in group settings, that's where the fear kicks in. Why? Because social status becomes a bigger deal in groups. People don't just react to the deep thinker's ideas, they worry about how they look in comparison. If someone feels outshined, they might try to undermine or exclude the thinker to protect their own standing. This explains why you might have amazing deep conversations in private, but struggle to connect in larger social circles. There's more to this. Psychologists point to cognitive biases that make people resist intelligence. Take the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with lower ability often overestimate their own smarts, while highly intelligent folks tend to doubt themselves. This creates tension. Those who know less might dismiss a deep thinker because they think they already know enough. Then there's the status quo bias. Our brains prefer familiar ideas over new, complex ones. Deep thinkers often bring disruptive truths that make people uncomfortable. And don't forget the backfire effect. When faced with ideas that challenge their beliefs, people don't reconsider. They double down. Deep thinkers run into this wall all the time. In today's world, social media makes this even worse. Algorithms reward engagement, not depth. Controversial, emotional, or simplistic content spreads faster than thoughtful arguments. Ever notice how viral sound bites, catchy but often shallow, get millions of views, while nuanced discussions barely break through? That's by design. The digital age favors entertainment over enlightenment, making it harder for deep thinkers to find a broad audience. Their ideas don't fit neatly into bite-sized, viral-friendly formats. So what does this mean for deep thinkers? The rejection they face isn't just social. It's biological, psychological, and amplified by modern technology. But here's the thing. This doesn't mean you should stop thinking deeply. It just means you need to understand the forces at play. Society might resist intelligence, but that's because intelligence represents change. And change, even when it's progress, is scary. In the next part, we'll dig into why society prioritizes comfort over truth and what deep thinkers can do to navigate this world without losing their spark. Want me to keep going? So, we've established that deep thinkers often feel isolated because their intelligence challenges people's egos and disrupts social harmony. But why does society lean so hard into comfort over truth? Why is it that shallow ideas often win out over deep ones? Let's unpack this and explore what it means for those of you who feel like your thoughts put you on the outside looking in. At its core, the human brain is wired to crave certainty and predictability. Psychologists call this cognitive ease. Our minds prefer information that's simple and familiar because it takes less effort to process. Complex or unfamiliar ideas, they feel like work, and our brains often tag them as risky or threatening. This isn't just a modern thing. It's baked into our evolutionary wiring. For our ancestors, sticking to what was known and avoiding uncertainty meant staying alive. If the tribe agreed on something, going against it could get you kicked out, leaving you vulnerable. So, our brains evolved to prioritize fitting in over standing out, even if that meant clinging to ideas that weren't entirely true. This preference for comfort shapes how society operates, from casual conversations to the institutions that mold our thinking. Take the education system. Schools say they value intelligence, but what do they really reward? Memorization, compliance, and fitting into the system. Students who question authority or think outside the curriculum are often labeled as troublemakers. The same goes for workplaces. Companies might claim they want innovation, but they often favor employees who play by the rules and maintain the status quo over those who challenge the system with bold ideas. Even in politics, leaders who speak hard truths rarely win over those who tell people what they want to hear. This dynamic is amplified in the digital age. Social media platforms are built to keep us engaged, not to make us think deeply. Algorithms prioritize content that's emotional, controversial, or easy to digest. Think viral sound bites or feel-good quotes. Thought-provoking discussions, they don't get the same traction because depth takes time, and most people scrolling don't have the patience for it. This creates echo chambers, where people are fed content that reinforces what they already believe, making them even more resistant to new perspectives. Deep thinkers, who often challenge mainstream narratives, end up ignored or attacked because their ideas don't fit the algorithm's need for instant engagement. Let's talk about Arthur Schopenhauer for a moment. He was one of the most brutally honest philosophers out there, and he had a lot to say about why intelligence can feel like a curse. Schopenhauer believed that most people are driven by what he called the will, a blind, irrational force that pushes us toward pleasure, comfort, and survival. For most folks, life is about chasing those things: a good job, relationships, entertainment. But deep thinkers, they're different. They're driven by what Schopenhauer called the will to truth, an urge to understand reality, even if it's uncomfortable or painful. This creates a disconnect. While most people find meaning in routine pleasures, deep thinkers often see those things as distractions from bigger existential questions. Schopenhauer argued that the smarter you are, the harder it is to relate to others. Why? Because you see through the surface-level stuff that most people cling to. Social interactions often involve small talk, status games, or polite dishonesty, but deep thinkers crave substance. They want meaningful discussions, not chatter about the weather or the latest trending show. This makes everyday interactions feel empty or frustrating, like you're speaking a different language. Schopenhauer went as far as to say that intelligence and happiness are inversely related, that ignorance, not wisdom, is the key to a carefree life. Harsh, but it explains why so many deep thinkers, from Nietzsche to Kafka, grappled with loneliness or existential crises. Let's reflect on that for a second. Have you ever felt bored in a conversation because it stayed on the surface? Or noticed that when you try to dive into something deeper, people tune out or change the topic? That's the disconnect Schopenhauer was talking about. Deep thinkers often feel misunderstood because they see the world too clearly, its flaws, its contradictions, its illusions. Most people chase desires like money, status, or relationships, but deep thinkers question the point of it all. That questioning can make them seem distant or indifferent to what excites others, which only widens the gap. But Schopenhauer didn't just point out the problem. He offered ways to cope. First, he said to embrace solitude. For deep thinkers, being alone isn't a punishment. It's a chance to explore ideas, create, and grow without the pressure to conform. Instead of seeking validation from a society that might not get you, use that time to dive into your passions, whether it's writing, art, or just thinking. Second, he suggested finding like-minded people. You don't need everyone to understand you, just a few who do. Whether it's through books, philosophy, or online communities, connecting with others who think deeply can make all the difference. Finally, he advised engaging with the world wisely. Not everyone is ready for your deepest thoughts, so pick your moments and your audience carefully. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about sharing your ideas in a way that doesn't overwhelm others. This brings us to a bigger question. If society resists deep thinkers, what does it actually embrace? Comfort, predictability, simplicity. That's why shallow conversations and repetitive content dominate social spaces. It's why viral influencers with catchy one-liners get more attention than nuanced thinkers. People want ideas that feel good, not ones that make them question everything. This isn't just a social preference. It's reinforced by how our brains are wired and how systems like education, work, and media shape our thinking. Let's look at history for a moment. Some of the greatest minds, Socrates, Galileo, Nietzsche, were outcasts in their time. Their ideas were too disruptive, too far ahead of what society was ready to accept. Socrates was put on trial for asking too many questions. Galileo was locked up for proving the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. Nietzsche was called crazy for challenging traditional morality. Yet today, we celebrate them as heroes. Their ideas laid the foundation for progress, but they paid a price for being ahead of their time. Society doesn't reject intelligence because it's wrong. It rejects it because it's uncomfortable. Deep thinkers force people to face truths they'd rather ignore, And that's a tough sell. So what can we learn from this? If you're a deep thinker, you're not broken. You're just seeing the world differently. But navigating that world takes strategy. You don't have to dim your light to fit in, but you do need to understand how to share it. In the next part, we'll dive into specific examples of deep thinkers throughout history and what their stories teach us about surviving in a world that's not always ready for your ideas. Ready for more? Just let me know. All right, we've talked about why deep thinkers often feel isolated and how society's wired to prioritize comfort over truth. Now, let's look at history to see this in action. Some of the greatest minds, people who changed the world, were rejected, ridiculed, or worse during their lifetimes. Their stories show us not just why deep thinking can be a lonely road, but also what it takes to keep going when the world isn't ready for your ideas. Let's start with Socrates, often called the father of Western philosophy. This guy was all about asking questions. He'd walk around Athens, challenging people to think critically about their beliefs, their values, even their gods. Sounds harmless, right? But his habit of poking holes in commonly accepted ideas made people uneasy. He wasn't trying to be a know-it-all. He just wanted folks to examine their lives and think for themselves. But that was too much for Athenian society. They accused him of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods. His real crime? Making people uncomfortable by exposing their shaky assumptions. In 399 BC, Socrates was put on trial and sentenced to death. Given the chance to escape, he chose to drink poison instead, staying true to his principles. His last words, something like, "The unexamined life is not worth living." His death sent a loud message. Society doesn't always take kindly to those who challenge its core beliefs. Now let's jump to Galileo Galilei, the guy who dared to say the earth revolves around the sun. Back in the 1600s, the Catholic Church held tight to the idea that Earth was the center of the universe. Galileo's telescope proved otherwise, but that truth was a direct threat to the Church's authority. They didn't just disagree with him, they branded him a heretic. Under threat of torture, Galileo was forced to publicly deny his findings, and he spent the last years of his life under house arrest. His books were banned for nearly a century. Crazy, right? The guy was right, but being right didn't matter. His discoveries challenged the power structure, and that made him dangerous. Today, we see Galileo as a scientific hero, but in his time, he was a pariah. His story shows that even undeniable truths get buried if they upset the status quo. Then there's Nietzsche. Yeah, I'm saying niche like you asked. This guy was a philosopher who didn't pull punches. He argued that traditional morality was flawed, that society was built on comforting lies, and that real strength came from creating your own values. Bold stuff. But in the late 1800s, it was way too radical. People didn't just disagree with Nietzsche, they dismissed him as unhinged. His books barely sold, and he was largely ignored or misunderstood during his life. It wasn't until after his death that his ideas started shaping psychology, literature, and existentialism. Today, Nietzsche's thoughts on power, will, and morality are cornerstones of modern philosophy. But back then, he was too far ahead, and society wasn't ready to listen. Let's not forget Nikola Tesla, the visionary who dreamed of free energy and wireless electricity. This guy was inventing the future, stuff we're still trying to catch up to. But his ideas threatened powerful people, like Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan, who were making bank selling electricity. Tesla's vision of free energy didn't fit their business model, so they sidelined him. Despite his genius, Tesla died broke and alone in a New York hotel room, while others profited off his inventions. His life is a stark reminder that society often rewards marketers and businessmen over true innovators. Tesla wasn't just a deep thinker, he was a dreamer who paid the price for seeing what others couldn't. And then there's Hypatia of Alexandria, a rare female voice in the ancient world. She was a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer in 4th century Rome, teaching reason and science in a male-dominated field. Her ideas put her at odds with religious authorities who saw her rational approach as a threat to their power. In 415 AD, a mob of extremists murdered her, targeting her for her intellect and influence. Hypatia's story underscores a brutal truth. Intellectual progress often meets violent resistance, especially when it challenges entrenched beliefs. What do all these people have in common? They were ahead of their time. Their ideas were too disruptive, too uncomfortable for the world they lived in. Society didn't reject them because they were wrong. It rejected them because they were right too soon. Deep thinkers don't just challenge ideas, they challenge the systems that keep society stable, whether it's religion, politics, or economics. And stability, for most people, trumps truth every time. This pattern isn't just ancient history, it's still happening. Take Alan Turing, the genius who helped end World War II by cracking Nazi codes. His work laid the foundation for modern computing and AI, but did he get a hero's welcome? Nope. In 1952, Turing was chemically castrated by the British government for being gay, a crime at the time. The persecution drove him to suicide at just 41. Today, we celebrate Turing as a pioneer, but in his lifetime, society discarded him. His story shows how even those who change the world can be punished for who they are or what they represent. So why does this keep happening? It's not just about individual egos, it's about how society is built. Systems like religion, government, or even social media thrive on predictability and control. Deep thinkers, with their pesky habit of questioning everything, threaten that control. They expose cracks in the system, and people in power don't like that. Neither do regular folks who just want life to feel safe and familiar. This is why, as we talked about earlier, our brains are wired to favor social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. Challenging the group's beliefs can feel like risking your place in the tribe. Here's the kicker. Society loves to celebrate deep thinkers after they're gone. Once their ideas are no longer a threat, once they've been proven right and the world's caught up, we build statues and name schools after them. Galileo's a hero now, Nietzsche's a legend, Tesla's a cult icon. But when they were alive, they were too much for the world to handle. This hindsight worship proves that society doesn't hate intelligence itself. It hates what intelligence does. It forces change. And change is scary, messy, and hard. So, what does this mean for you if you're a deep thinker? It means you're in good company, but it also means you've got to be strategic. Not everyone's ready for your ideas, and that's okay. You don't need the whole world to get you. Just the right people. Save your deepest thoughts for those who'll appreciate them, whether it's a close friend, an online community, or even the pages of a journal. And don't be afraid to simplify your ideas without dumbing them down. Like Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. Finding ways to share your depth without alienating others is key. In the next part, we'll explore how deep thinkers can navigate a world that's not always built for them. We'll look at practical ways to stay true to your ideas while finding connection and purpose. Want to keep going? Let me know. We've seen how history treats deep thinkers, pushing them to the sidelines because their ideas shake things up. From Socrates to Turing, the pattern is clear. Society resists those who see the world too clearly, at least until it's ready to catch up. But what does this mean for you if you're someone who thinks deeply? Are you doomed to feel like an outsider forever? Not at all. Let's talk about how you can navigate a world that isn't always built for deep thinkers while staying true to who you are. First, let's acknowledge the reality. Society is designed for stability, not disruption. Most people crave comfort, predictability, and ideas that don't make them question too much. That's why shallow conversations dominate, why viral content leans on emotions over logic, and why systems like schools or workplaces reward fitting in over standing out. Deep thinkers, with their knack for questioning norms and digging into uncomfortable truths, can feel like they're swimming against the current. But that doesn't mean you have to change who you are. It means you need to be smart about how you share your ideas and where you find connection. One of the biggest challenges for deep thinkers is finding a place to belong. When you're wired to question everything, casual small talk or surface-level trends can feel mind-numbing. You might try to share a big idea, only to get blank stares or a quick subject change. It's frustrating, but it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because not everyone's ready for the kind of depth you bring. The key is to stop expecting everyone to get you. You don't need the whole world to understand your thoughts, just a few people who do. So, how do you find those people? Start by seeking out like-minded thinkers. This doesn't always mean in-person connections, though those are great if you can find them. Books, for instance, are a goldmine. Reading the works of philosophers like Schopenhauer or Nietzsche, still saying niche for you, can feel like having a conversation with someone who gets it. Online communities are another option. Whether it's a subreddit, a Discord server, or a niche forum, there are corners of the internet where people dive deep into ideas. Look for spaces where curiosity is celebrated, not shut down. Even if it's just one or two people, finding others who share your passion for truth can make you feel less alone. Another strategy is to embrace solitude, but not in a lonely way. Schopenhauer saw solitude as a privilege for deep thinkers, a chance to explore ideas, create, and grow without the pressure to conform. If you're constantly trying to fit into spaces that don't value depth, you might end up feeling drained or misunderstood. Instead, use your alone time to lean into what makes you unique. Write, draw, code, or just think. Turn your ideas into something tangible, whether it's a journal, a blog, or a project. Solitude isn't about isolating yourself. It's about giving your mind the space to breathe. Now let's talk about communicating your ideas. One of the biggest hurdles for deep thinkers is getting others to listen without tuning out. It's tempting to dive straight into the deep end of a complex idea, but most people need a bridge to get there. Think about Einstein's advice. If you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough. Simplifying doesn't mean dumbing down. It means finding a way to make your ideas accessible without losing their core. Try framing your thoughts in a way that connects to something relatable. Use stories, analogies, or examples to draw people in. The goal isn't to water down your depth, but to meet people where they are. Here's a practical tip. Know your audience. Not every setting is the right place for your deepest thoughts. If you're at a casual hangout, maybe save the existential debate for later and focus on connecting in a lighter way. But when you're with someone who's open to big ideas, don't hold back. Schopenhauer had a great point here. He said deep thinkers should observe society, learn its patterns, and choose their words carefully. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about picking the right moments to share your truth. Let's zoom out for a second. Why does society make this so hard? It comes back to those psychological biases we talked about earlier. The status quo bias makes people cling to familiar ideas, even when they're flawed. The backfire effect means people double down on their beliefs when challenged rather than reconsidering. And then there's groupthink. People would rather conform to the crowd than risk standing out. These biases aren't just individual. They're reinforced by the systems around us. Schools teach us to memorize, not question. Workplaces reward loyalty over innovation. Social media amplifies simple, emotional content over nuanced arguments. All of this creates a world where deep thinkers can feel like they don't fit. But here's the flip side. Deep thinkers are the ones who move the world forward. Every major breakthrough, scientific, philosophical, cultural, came from someone who dared to think differently. Galileo's discoveries reshaped our understanding of the universe. Nietzsche's ideas changed how we think about morality. Tesla's inventions paved the way for modern technology. These people didn't let rejection stop them, and neither should you. Yes, it's tough when society pushes back, but that resistance is often a sign you're onto something important. So, how do you keep going when you feel like an outsider? One way is to reframe your perspective. Instead of seeing your isolation as a flaw, see it as a strength. Your ability to see what others don't is a gift, even if it feels heavy sometimes. Schopenhauer called intelligence a double-edged sword. It brings clarity, but also distance. The trick is to focus on the clarity. Use your insight to create, to question, to build something meaningful. Whether it's a piece of art, a new idea, or a conversation that sparks change, your depth has value. Another tip is to find balance. You don't have to choose between being a deep thinker and connecting with others. You can enjoy light moments, laughing with friends, watching a silly movie, without losing your intellectual core. The key is to know when to lean into your depth and when to just be present. Deep thinkers often feel like they have to pick a side, but you can be both thoughtful and approachable. It's about finding spaces where you can be yourself without judgment. In today's world, this is harder than ever. Social media and algorithms reward quick, catchy content over substance. The most popular creators often lean on drama or simplicity to grab attention, but that doesn't mean there's no place for depth. Look at the creators who do succeed with thoughtful content. They exist because they found ways to package big ideas in ways that resonate. You can do the same. Share your thoughts in a way that invites people in, not pushes them away. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into practical strategies for deep thinkers to thrive in a world that doesn't always get them. We'll look at how to build a community, share your ideas effectively, and stay true to your vision without burning out. Ready for more? Just let me know. So, we've covered why deep thinkers often feel like outsiders and how history shows they're not alone in facing rejection. Now, let's get practical. How do you, as a deep thinker, thrive in a world that's not always built for your kind of mind? How do you stay true to your ideas while finding connection and purpose? Let's break it down with some strategies to navigate this tension and make your mark without losing yourself. First off, let's talk about building your tribe. You don't need everyone to understand you, just a few people who do. Finding those people is key to feeling less isolated. Start small. Look for communities where curiosity and depth are valued. This could be a local book club, a philosophy meetup, or even an online space like a forum or a Discord group focused on ideas you care about. Platforms like X can be great for this. Search for hashtags or accounts that align with your interests, whether it's science, philosophy, or big-picture questions. Engage with people who are asking the same kinds of questions you are. Even 1 or 2 meaningful connections can make a huge difference, giving you a space to share your thoughts without judgment. If you're struggling to find those people in real life, don't sleep on the power of books or historical figures. Reading someone like Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, still sticking with niche for you, or even modern thinkers can feel like a conversation across time. Their words remind you that you're part of a long line of people who've wrestled with big ideas and felt out of place. It's not about replacing human connection. It's about finding inspiration and validation while you build your real-world circle. Next, let's tackle how to share your ideas without alienating others. One of the biggest frustrations for deep thinkers is feeling like their thoughts fall on deaf ears. Part of this comes down to delivery. You might have a brilliant, complex idea, but if you present it like a lecture, people might tune out. The trick is to meet people where they are. Think about how you can frame your ideas in a way that's inviting, not intimidating. Stories are a great tool here. People connect with narratives. They're emotional, relatable, and stick in the mind. If you're talking about a big concept, try tying it to a personal experience or a simple analogy. It's like what Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Simplifying doesn't mean dumbing down, it means making your ideas clear enough to spark curiosity. Timing matters too. Not every moment is right for a deep dive. If you're at a party or a casual hangout, people might not be in the mood for a debate about the meaning of life. Save your big thoughts for one-on-one conversations or settings where people are open to going deeper, like a discussion group or even a comment section online. Schopenhauer had a point when he said to observe society and choose your words wisely. It's not about hiding your depth, it's about knowing when and where it'll land best. Another way to thrive is to channel your ideas into something creative. Deep thinkers often feel restless because their minds are buzzing with questions and insights. Instead of letting that energy make you feel stuck, turn it into something tangible. Write a blog, start a YouTube channel, create art, or even code a project. The act of creating gives you a way to process your thoughts and share them with the world on your terms. Plus, it's a way to connect with others who resonate with your ideas. Look at creators who've built audiences around thoughtful content. They don't just dump complex ideas on people. They package them in ways that are engaging, whether through humor, visuals, or storytelling. Let's talk about social media for a second, because it's a double-edged sword for deep thinkers. On one hand, platforms like X or Euros give you a chance to find your people and share your ideas. On the other hand, they're built for quick, emotional content, not nuanced discussions. If you're going to use these platforms, play smart. Break your ideas into bite-sized pieces that invite engagement. Maybe a thought-provoking question, or a short thread that leads to a bigger point. Avoid getting sucked into outrage bait or shallow arguments. Focus on starting conversations with people who are open to depth. It's not about chasing virality, it's about finding your niche. Now let's address the emotional side of being a deep thinker. It's easy to feel frustrated or lonely when you don't fit in. But instead of seeing your perspective as a burden, try to view it as a superpower. Your ability to see through illusions, question norms, and dig for truth is rare and valuable. Sure, it can make social interactions tricky, but it also gives you the power to create change, spark new ideas, or even inspire others. The key is to balance your intellectual drive with moments of lightness. You don't have to be on all the time. Enjoy the silly stuff too, like a goofy movie or a night out with friends. It's not about abandoning your depth, it's about giving yourself permission to recharge. One thing to watch out for is burnout. Deep thinkers often put a lot of pressure on themselves to figure things out or change the world. That's noble, but it can wear you down. Set realistic expectations. You don't need to solve every problem or convince everyone. Focus on small wins, like a great conversation or finishing a project that matters to you. And don't be afraid to set boundaries. If a social setting feels draining or superficial, it's okay to step back and prioritize your mental energy. Finally, remember that you're part of a bigger story. Every deep thinker we've talked about, Socrates, Galileo, Tesla, Hypatia, faced resistance, but their ideas outlived them. Society might not always embrace you right away, but your thoughts have the power to ripple out over time. You don't need immediate validation to make a difference. Keep asking questions, keep creating, and keep seeking truth. The world needs people like you, even if it doesn't always know it. In the next part, we'll wrap things up by looking at how to stay resilient as a deep thinker and why your perspective is crucial for pushing humanity forward, even when it feels like an uphill battle. Want to keep going? Just let me know. We're in the final stretch now, and we've covered a lot. Why deep thinkers feel isolated, how society resists their ideas, and strategies to navigate that resistance. But let's bring it home. How do you stay resilient as a deep thinker? How do you keep pushing forward when the world seems to favor comfort over truth? And why does your perspective matter, even when it feels like an uphill battle? Let's dive in and wrap this up with some final thoughts on thriving as a deep thinker. Resilience starts with accepting a hard truth. Society isn't always going to roll out the red carpet for your ideas. As we've seen with Socrates, Galileo, Nietzsche, still going with niche for you and others, deep thinkers often face pushback because their insights challenge the status quo. That resistance can feel personal, but it's not about you. It's about what your ideas represent. Change is uncomfortable, and humans are wired to avoid it. Recognizing this can help you let go of the need for universal acceptance. You don't need everyone to get you. You just need to stay true to your vision and find the right audience for it. One way to build resilience is to reframe rejection. When people tune out your ideas or change the subject, it's not a sign that you're wrong. It's often a sign that you're onto something. Deep thinkers throughout history were ignored or mocked in their time, only to be celebrated later. Galileo's discoveries were banned, but they reshaped science. Tesla's ideas were dismissed, but they power our world today. When you face resistance, remind yourself that being ahead of your time is part of the deal. It's not easy, but it's a badge of honor. Your job isn't to make everyone agree with you. It's to plant seeds that might grow later. Another key to resilience is protecting your mental space. Deep thinking can be exhausting, especially when you're constantly wrestling with big questions or feeling misunderstood. Give yourself permission to step back sometimes. You don't have to solve the world's problems every day. Take breaks to recharge, whether it's through hobbies, nature, or just laughing with friends. These moments of lightness don't make you less intellectual. They keep you grounded so you can keep going. Schopenhauer, for all his gloom, saw the value in this. He believed deep thinkers should carve out space for solitude and creativity, not to isolate themselves, but to nurture their minds. Speaking of nurturing, let's talk about purpose. One of the biggest challenges for deep thinkers is feeling like their insights don't matter. But here's the thing. Your perspective is crucial. Every major leap in human progress, whether it's scientific, philosophical, or cultural, came from someone who dared to think differently. Without deep thinkers, we'd still be stuck in the Dark Ages, believing the earth is flat or that questioning authority is a crime. Your ability to see through illusions, ask tough questions, and imagine new possibilities is what pushes humanity forward. Even if you don't see the impact right away, your ideas can ripple out in ways you might not expect. So how do you make sure your ideas have an impact? Start by focusing on what you can control. You might not change the world overnight, but you can share your thoughts in ways that resonate. If you're a creator, think about how you can craft your content to draw people in. Maybe it's a compelling story, a thought-provoking question, or a visual that makes your idea pop. On platforms like YouTube or X, where attention spans are short, find ways to hook your audience without sacrificing depth. Break your ideas into digestible pieces, use humor or relatable examples, and invite discussion. The goal is to spark curiosity, not overwhelm. Connection is just as important as creation. Keep seeking out your people, those who value depth and aren't afraid to engage with big ideas. Whether it's through comments on your videos, conversations in online communities, or even a small group of friends, those connections will keep you grounded. And don't underestimate the power of listening. Deep thinkers often feel like they have to be the ones with all the answers, but some of the best insights come from engaging with others' perspectives. Ask questions, stay open, and build a dialogue. It's not about convincing everyone, it's about creating a space where ideas can grow. Let's address one last challenge: the temptation to dim your light. When you feel misunderstood or ignored, it's easy to think you need to tone down your thoughts to fit in. Don't. The world needs your depth, even if it doesn't always know it. Instead of shrinking, focus on finding the right outlets for your ideas. Maybe it's a niche community, a creative project, or even a single conversation that lights someone up. As Schopenhauer put it, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Your ability to see what others don't is your strength, even if it makes you feel like an outsider sometimes. Here's a final thought. You're not alone. Every deep thinker who's ever felt out of place, from Hypatia to Turing, has walked this path. They faced rejection, but they kept going, and their ideas changed the world. You're part of that legacy. Society might not always embrace you right away, but it needs you. It needs people who question, who challenge, who see beyond the surface. So keep thinking deeply, keep creating, keep sharing. The world might not be ready for you now, but history shows it'll catch up eventually. If this resonates with you, drop a comment below. Have you ever felt like your thoughts set you apart? How do you deal with it? Let's get a conversation going. And if you want more content like this, diving into big ideas and how to navigate the world as a deep thinker, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.